Welcome to the Yeshivah Shalmaila. This is David Lichtenstein, and this week we'll be discussing litigation, mostly aggravation, divorce, Bais Din, and the process. So we will start by speaking about the concept of Toanim. What's a Toen? Toen is basically a lawyer who's practicing al pi halacha. In other words, he's usually learned in halacha, who represents the litigants in Bais Din. And here are some of the questions we'll be discussing, some of the debates we'll be having. Should Toanim, or professional litigators, be allowed to represent the two sides? Right? Some people take the opinion that it creates a curated, like a very practiced show. Like somebody said, once I had a big lawyer by me for a Friday night meal, and he was saying basically it's two actors deciding on which actor, the jury decides which actor did a better job regarding the two lawyers. So Shulchan Aruch, we'll see the Gemara, the Poskim, the Rambam certainly takes the position that maybe Toanim should not be allowed. Would a more honest conclusion be rendered if they dealt with the litigants directly? And we're going to hear two very different opinions. We're going to hear from two of the most well-known Toanim in America, and a Dayan, as well as Herschel Shachter, will take a different position. Now, what about the cost? What does somebody do? If you're a rich person, you want to go spend $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 to $100,000, go for it. What about if you have to make chasanas and pay tuition, and you're holding out sons-in-law, et cetera, all the things that frumma people do? You have Kahn or a house of kids. So what does it say? The Torah is very clear that a dal also has to have a chance. How could he afford this? We will hear from a Bais Din that charges $500 to adjudicate a matter, no matter how many times it takes, and they don't allow Toanim, so you don't have that expense, and you will decide whether it's a good or a bad idea. A Bais Din that says for $3,500 they will adjudicate a get, and if they don't get the get and it's not completed, they don't charge. So there is a new wind in the air here. We will learn about the process and how to tell the difference between a fly-by-night or a corrupt Bais Din, and then a competent and a Bais Din that really, is respected and knows what it's doing. How can you tell the difference? We will hear opinions on that as well. So I hope none of you are ever in a din Torah. All litigation is painful, but if you are, or you're just curious, this should be a very interesting program. We have a wonderful group of Talmidei Chachamim and experts in this area to discuss it. We have from Yeshivah Rabbi Kahn, Rabbi Herschel Shachter. We have from Borough Park, Rabbi Zalam Graus. He's a Talmud of Bells. He was the editor of the Oitzer HaPoskim, Mechaber of 7 Seforim, a fabulous Talmud Chacham. But he's arguably one of the 2 or 3 most famous Toen Rabbanim in America, right? And he's great integrity, very respected. He's doing it for almost 45 years, so he knows every in and out. Listen to him, and you'll hear from the way he presents himself. This is how he presents people in the Torah, with a lot of confidence and yedias, etc. We will have the Dayan. This is going in a different direction now. This week, Rabbi Avrohom Kahn, who is the Dayan of the New City Bais Din, that is under the the direction of Hagoyin Rabbi Stern. And they have totally broken the entire model. No Toanim. They actually do provide a Toen, but they provide it so they know the Toen has integrity. Just really astonishing. And they will do it in Torah for $500. And if you hear them later on, you'll hear they can even do it for less than that. So it's really, the Dal is honored over here. A fabulous Talmud Chacham, young Talmud. Speak to him in Dalal Hoke Shulchan Aruch with the Shach and the Taz. You have from Brooklyn, Rabbi Simcha Ross. Again, one of the few most respected Toanim in America. He's a Talmud of both Satmar and Lakewood. And he was a Mashkiach in the Yeshivah by Chabad. So this is somebody, he's really a kol boy. All of Khal Yisrael, licked by Emeth and Hearts. Very famous Toyin, great integrity. So we will be breaking this program into 2 because it was too long to do in 1 week. There are a lot of issues to cover here. the second half, which will be not next week, but the following, will be with Rabbi Simcha Roth, and from Eretz Yisrael. Now we're going to go to Rabbi Tuvia Stern, a very well-known lawyer and Toen Rabbani, because in Eretz Yisrael, to be a Toen Rabbani, according to the law, you have to be a lawyer as well, and you have to be licensed. He will speak about the differences between Eretz Yisrael and America. So it should be just really fascinating. We'll speak a lot in learning and Ashkafa, and we'll debate and argue. This is what Yidden do, right? And it's really very eye-opening. And again, I hope none of you, my listeners, ever need, but if you ever have to go to a Din Torah, if you ever have litigation, certainly very informative. And even if you don't, at least understanding the processes of what happens, I think this will be a fabulous experience. But before we begin, I'd like to say over something on the Parsha, or about the times. Now, I'm a frum Jew, and I work in a secular world, which some of you may or may not. And as a frum Jew in a secular world, I frequently get asked when something bad happens, and where is God? There's a disaster, natural, man-made, a death. Where is God? And that's why I'm not religious. It always comes, so, my grandfather was religious, but then I saw this terrible, so where is God? And that's why I'm not religious. And let me tell you about the first person who asked this question. You know who it was? Avrohom Avinu. Our grandfather Avrohom asked this question, and the Kotzker Rebbe, interestingly, in Sheshek, Sarfei Kodesh, they bring from him, he says, when the Gemara wants to ask a fabulous question, the Gemara says, Mara'i Avrohom, Lord of Avrohom, God of Avrohom. And he says, why is a great question prefaced as Mara'i Avrohom? He said, because that's the great question that Avrohom asked. Where is God? How could this happen? But it implies that Avrohom found the answer. And what is that answer? Let me share it with you. And here's another interesting thing. Of Avrohom, all his stories, we have one mitzvah from Avrohom. And if it's one mitzvah from Avrohom that we have, it represents Avrohom, it must represent his ideology. And what is that? We say, Lachdisai bibrisai shel Avrohom Avinu. Right? Gemei chasadim, bnei gemei chasadim wearing ksubis, brisai shel Avrohom Avinu. The mitzvah of bris. On the 8th day we take a child. Why is this? Why does this represent the ideology of Avrohom? So let me share with you a thought. The Medrash says in the beginning, Lech Lecha Medrash Rabbah, how did Avrohom discover God? It says, Mashal le'echad she'yover mimakom lemakom. There was a traveler in the desert, and he saw a bira de lekes, a burning palace, and he said, Bira Zubaleimanic? Like, where is the owner of this palace? Why isn't he running around with a fire extinguisher? Why didn't he call the fire department? He's letting the palace burn? It's astonishing. So the Bala Bira came to him, and who is the Bala Bira? God. And he said, Anihu Bala Bira. I am the Bala Bira. And the answer to your question is, V'yisav hamelech yafyach. God wants to see your beauty. This is very cryptic medrash. First encounter with our grandfather Avrohom and Rabbi Shalom. Let me tell you a pshat that Shekibalti. Avrohom Avinu looked at which bira delek is a burning palace, this mushal. Whose palace was it? How was it burning? Everything in the Middle East is made out of stone. But the Medrash says it's a mushal. And what's the mushal? Avrohom Avinu looked at the world. And what did he saw? He saw a crazy world, the Meshuggah world. He saw a world with disease, cancer, stroke, autism, missed pregnancies, terminated pregnancies, right, miscarriages. He saw a world with divorce. He saw a world with widows, orphans. He saw a world with molestation. He saw a world where kids can't get into schools. He saw a world of older singles who can't find a zivug. He saw a world from an ecological point of view with global warming, with tsunamis. And he said, what a basket case. Who made this world? Where is God? The question of Mara'i Avrohom. Where is God? And the Medrash says, Rabbi Shalom answered him an amazing answer. And this is an answer that the Christians don't accept, the Stoics, the Buddhists, none of them accept this answer. And you know what he said? Rabbi Shalom answered him, you ask me where is God, I have a question. Where are you? Where is man? What does that mean to say? An astonishing chiddush here. The Rabbi Shalom does not want religion is not a get out of jail free card like the Christians believe. It saves you from eternal damnation if you believe. No. Rabbi Shalom didn't want employees. He didn't want bystanders. You know what the Rabbi Shalom wanted? He wanted partners. And when Rabbi Shalom asks, you ask, where is God? Where are you? I created a world. Yes, somebody died. Were you mavakachela? Are you going to help the Yisayimim? I did 96%. But I want you to partner with me on the last 4%. I want partners. I want ownership. I don't want fill-ins. I don't want bystanders. It says, Vayichulu hashamayim v'aretz. And Rabbi Shalom finished. We say every Friday night. So the Medrash says, it doesn't say Vayichulu. It's missing the vav. It says Vayichalu. Vayichalu means, and they finished, or and we finished. Vayichalu is hamalacha. Who's the they? It refers to man, and he finishes the job together with Kaviyachal. And with that, the Medrash says he becomes shutif b'maisa bereshis. You know, in Christianity, there's a doctrine called solo fide. Solo fide means, and it's the Protestants, the WASPs, all the blondes. What do they believe? They're all Protestants. What do they believe? All you need is faith. What does Christianity require? You go twice a year, Easter, this to a mass. All you have is faith. The rest of the year can be abschickern, alle meisim roim, niyuv, gneva, gzeil, doesn't matter. Solo fide, because they believe that man's actions have very little meaning. Faith, and God takes care of everything. You're basically like an extra in a movie. As long as you have faith, you don't have to do anything. You could stay home and sleep. Right? Yiddishkeit teaches us something very different. You know, I once heard Jackie Mason say, every Jew wants to be a partner. He's walking around. I don't know what I want to be but what does partnership mean? Ownership. Do you want to be a renter or do you want to be an owner? It's the first thing. Even younger light, the first thing they do. What does that mean? We want to own. We want to be involved. We don't want to be the potted plant. Right? And you know what? The tzaddikim can become much more than owners. What does it say about Avrohom, about Yaakov Avinu? Vayikra lekeil alekei Yisrael. It says in Vayishlach on Avrohom Avinu. So two ways to learn. Vayikra lekeil, the Rabbi Shalom called him, or Rashi says no. Alekei Yisrael called Yaakov Keil. He called him a god. And what does the Gemara say? That's the Gemara in Megillah. And in Bereshis Rabbah, Mahakadosh Baruch Hu Boirei Lamais. Af avichem boirei lamais. Yaakov created a lamais too. Every Jew, you will learn the Nefesh HaChaim with every ma'aseh, every word of Divrei Torah, every mitzvah creates a lamais. Ma avichem, ma kadosh baruch hu boirei lamais. Af avichem. So Yaakov is called Khal. Right? What does the Medrash say in Ayin Tes in Breish Rabbah? Ani Elokim be'elyonim, v'ata Eloka b'tachtainim. We can be godlike. We can become. We can. A tzaddik almost becomes the god. He's a chelik Elikami mal. What does the Zohar say? Loimer letziyain amiyata al tikri ami elaimi lahave shutfa. Or what does the Gemara say in the Paskin Shulchan Aruch? Hamahar achar Rabbi kimahar achar Shechina. You can become. The tzaddik becomes godlike. That's what the Rabbi Shalom says. Avrohom Avinu asked the amazing question, where is God? And what does the Rabbi Shalom say? Where is man? I want you to fix the problems. I left you a little piece. You know, what is Mila? A created man. There's a little piece that you have to cut off. There's a little piece that you still have to be masakin. And when is that? On the 8th day. 7 days on my Bereshis. On the 8th day, the Rabbi Shalom gives the keys to you. That is what Avrohom Avinu was Machadish. Not like the Christians that were bystanders. Not like the Buddhists who say all suffering is in the mind and it doesn't exist. Really? Tell that to a kid who lost a father. Tell that to a girl who's not in school or an older single who's crying their heart out of loneliness. It's in your mind. Jews say, no, it's not in your mind. Our job is become the Shachter. Invite them over. Help them with their tuition. That's the Jewish answer. This is a story I've heard over, and I tell you, by Chassidish stories, you never know if they're true. But I have a Kabbalah that we believe they could be true, and it's a profound story. I believe I've said it before, but they say it from the Lechavitcher. Right? It was a big tzaddik in Russia, right? And Chassid came to him, and he said, listen, Rebbe, every time you need me, I'm there for you. Even at great personal expense. You needed a nursing home for the old people, whatever they did for old people back in the 1700s. I was there. I sold pot. I want one thing. I want to see Eliyahu Hanavi. Lachavitch looks. He says, you can't see Eliyahu Hanavi. You need to be a very special, holy person to see it. He comes back again. Rebbe, you told me to make the shidduch for so and so, the wedding. I sold my in my house. I sold my carpets to make that, to pay for their chasana, please. He comes again. I know the Lachavitch walks at him. He says, my holy Yadallah, this is what you could do to see Eliyahu Hanavi. You really want to? He says, Rosh Hashanah is coming in a week. Rezela, the Almana, the widow, she lives in your neighborhood. She has 7 children. Her husband died suddenly. They don't have mamish food. Erev Rosh Hashanah, bring 2 huge boxes, put them on her front porch, full of wine, challah, candles, yahrzeit to light in shul. Kol minim atamim, knock on her door, and when they're coming to the door, before they open, say, it's for Yom Tif, food, everything, and run away before they see you. He goes, he buys everything, he puts it in 2 big boxes, sneaks up, puts it on the porch, and he hears somebody coming, he says, it's for Yom Tif, it's kosher food, and runs away. Door opens, there's nobody there. That Rosh Hashanah, he mamish davened like he never davened before. And every time the shul opens, he looked, seeing Eliyahu Hanavi, nothing. He comes home, nothing. He's all upset. Before Sukkot, he goes back to the Rabbi. He says, Rabbi, I did everything. I didn't see Eliyahu Hanavi. Lachavitch says, Sukkot is coming. It's 9 days in Chutz La'aretz with Smuchas Torah. They have nothing. Bring again, and knock on the door and run away. So he goes. He fills up 5 boxes, chalas, wine, chicken, meat, kishket, cholent. He buys for hakafis, he buys the kids flags and nash, whatever. Knocks on the door, somebody starts coming, he says, it's for Yom Tif, runs away. Nobody's there. They open the door, nobody's there. That night, Sukkot, he's mamish b'simcha, the door opens. Eliyahu, the door opens, who is it? No. It's his neighbor, Mendel. He needs to borrow a bottle of wine. They forgot to buy wine. Every time the sukkah door opens, he's there. It's Eliyahu. Good nishtokin Eliyahu. Very upset. He says, Hanukkah, I'm going back to the Rebbe. I'm going to say, this is terrible. I trust. Goes back Hanukkah. Tells the Rebbe, listen, you told me. So he says, well, let's try it one more time. It's Hanukkah. They don't have coats. Rezel Dalmana. Phil put in coats. And nash and presents for the kids. There's no father to give them presents. Knock on the door, and when the door opens, before the door opens, run away. Say it's for Yom Tif, run away. Did it again. Knocks on the door, hears steps, runs away. As the door opens, he hears a child there. He says, Mommy, you were right. It's Eliyahu Hanavi again. He goes back to the Lachavitch. He tells over the story to Lachavitch. He smiles. He says, my holy Yadallah, I couldn't show you Eliyahu Hanavi, so I did something better. I made you into Eliyahu Hanavi. And that is the gift that Avrohom Avinu was Megala to the world that us didn't have. Other religions were they want you to be bystanders or stoics, or the pain doesn't exist, or come twice a year, solo fido. The Rebbeinu Shalom said, no, I want partners. I want gods. I want to create ani avichem hu kel bel Kadosh Baruch Hu's kel bel yoinim atem tainatenim. I want to make you into a tzelem Elokim, a mini dmus of Elokim. Mila b'shminis, 7 days I created the world. And yes, there's a world that still have a little problems. And when you see those problems on the 8th day, here are the keys, Holy Yidala. Step up. When you do that, you become my partner in my Bereshis. Gift of Avrohom Avinu. Before we go to our show, let's say the riddle of the week. The Akedah. Akedas Yitzchak Lazari Hayoim Barachamim Tizkar. The great Akedah is constantly mentioned. We mention it davening on the Yom Narayim. We mention it every day. People say the Parshas Akedah. So here's the question: what's the big deal about? Why is it such a tremendous thing, the Akedah? We say the Lazari Baracham Hayoim Tizkar. He says by Yidin we saw so many generations. By Chelmanitsky Yamachshamai, by Hitler, by the Crusades, they took their kids into rooms, the parents killed her. So it was done so many times in Khal Yisrael, even though they were in Nevi'im. So Kolshkein Avrohom Avinu, that he heard it from Kaviyachal himself. And let me ask it in a little more, even a controversial way. Today, you see suicide bombers, right? By Venu Yamachshamam, right? By World War II, there were the kamikaze bombers. So you see that there's the concept of dying for a cause. So that's the question. Why? What stands out about the Akedah? And some people say, well, it was the first time. Well, we don't know that. There could have been kamikaze bombers before that. Or there could have been ISIS suicide bombers before that, too. We don't know that for a fact. By Khal Yisrael it is. That is the question. What is so... Why is the schus of the Akedah do we hold up in such reverence, knowing the history of both the Khal Yisrael and Lahavdil, the Bedumay Zalam? Riddle number 1. And here's a riddle on Hayasara. Ularifka ach ushmoy lavan, the pasuk says. The Gemara said, the Rishonim say, Chizkuni, the Rabbeinu Vaad Bar Tanura, Riva, the Moshev Kainim. It says, Ularifka ach ushmoy lavan. To explain to us, how could Esav Harasha come from Yitzchak? But because Rivki Menu was the brother of Lavan Harasha, and she was Doivek Milavan Bibna, right? Some of Lavan ended up with her son, right? What does it say? Banim Dayan Lachia Aim. And that's why Esav came, because she was the brother of a Lavan. Now, which is interesting, because Rivka was Niskayer, and you may want to say that Roiv Banim Dayan Lachia Aim you don't have by a Giyaris. Right? You see from these Rishonim, not like that. And more than that, Ramosha and Evan Ezechel, like Dalit Simanayin Aleph, says a reason to marry a Bas Yisrael better than Giyaris would possibly be. He says because Banim is Dayan Lachia Aim, so even by Giyaris you have to be Choshesh Lachia Aim. So the question is, why did Yitzchak choose Rivka Leisha, and he wasn't Choshesh for this that Yekaimelan? The Gemara about Basra, the Kuf, it says Bishbed Rava, Hanois Isha Tzarach Sheyivda Bachea, and he learns it from Aaron, right? And the Gemara says, Roiv Banim Dayan Lachia Aim. Since Lavan Harami, that was his title, Chais Rivka Haya, he should have been Choshesh for this din that Roiv Banim, who should be Choshesh for Roiv. How did Yitzchak marry Rivka? That's the question here. Those are our 2 riddles. Let's go to our wonderful guests. We're honored to have with us Harav Hagoyin, Rabbi Herschel Shachter, Rosh Yeshivah of Rabbi Khal, and the Khal with us on the line. Welcome to the Rosh Yeshivah.
Good evening, Shalom Aleichem.
So in Bais Din, they have Toanim. And anybody who's had a lawyer or had a Toya knows that they sit down and they concoct, many of them, what is the best exact way to argue your story so that in front of the Bais Din they know the Shach, they know the Taz, etc. This exact nusach is, Pashit Malamdei Befiu. So should Bais Din outlaw Toyanim? Say, listen, we want to hear directly from the Baldin. That way we could question them. We can know they're not it's not overly prepped, etc. Or do Toyanim serve a purpose because there are people who are Pashit, intimidated, And there's said up play down, but also the concept is there are people who are intimidated, and for them we do have Toanim. We need Toanim. What is Rosh Yeshiva's opinion?
I think Toanim institution is scandalous. It's against halacha. They make up shkorim. It's terrible. They train the baladinim how to present their case. That's not right. We should have the baladinim tell over the story, and we'll figure out what the din is. You don't prompt them and tell them. It's like a lawyer told me. He used to work for a law firm. A lawyer used to work for a law firm where they took care of insurance. So you show the person. You see, if they tripped over here on the sidewalk, then the owner of the store is responsible to pay. If you tripped over there, then the owner is not responsible. So tell me again, where did you trip? So you lead them in to give sheker. So all these Toanim, in America it's terrible. Maybe in other countries it's not as bad, but here I think it's awful. The Toanim are scandalous. The few Dinei Torah I was involved in where they were Toanim were terrible. Because of
and what about the fear that there are people who are intimidated to talk?
So different people put out booklets, pamphlets, to guide you through it in Torah. They said, this is how it's going to happen, this is what's going to begin with this. And you read these books, and they show you what to expect. If you don't know what to expect in advance, you won't know what to say. But if they show you, they give you a book, and they write to the whole procedure, and we want to hear the truth. So we tell them, write down all the points that are relevant, and say over the story, Dvarim Kahava Yosam, and we'll tell you what the din is. Terrible. Now with the Toanim, the parties, the Dayan and Nitva, they're not interested in finding out the emes. They want to win. Not that they want to do what the Rebbeinu Shalom wants them to do. They just want to win the money. So whichever Toyan gives bigger shkorim, so they hire him. The bigger the chakran, so the more money he makes as a Toyan. It's terrible.
Okay, Rosh Yeshiva has some experience in Dinei Torah. Does he find that the Batei Dinim are competent? Does he find that the cost has become exorbitant? Only a rich person could go to Bais Din these days. It could take months and months and months of yeshivas. In Rosh Yeshiva's opinion, are the Batei Dinim competent, and can it be done for a reasonable cost?
We used to have a Bais Din in YU. Baladinim would come on a Sunday when they don't have to go to work, and we would pick the first 3 Rabbeim who happened to be in the Beis Medrash. You can do it in any yeshiva. Pick the first 3 Rabbeim you bump into, you're going to get the same psak in any yeshiva. No one is Nageya. We didn't charge any money at all. The RCA doesn't allow Toanim. We didn't allow Toanim. When we had the Batei Dinim in the yeshiva, picked the first 3 Rabbeim, we didn't permit any Toanim, and the RCA doesn't permit any Toanim either. They have to allow the 2 parties at Tevel and Nitzvah to have the lawyer with them, otherwise it won't be, it can be overturned in court that it wasn't fair that you didn't have a lawyer watching. So they allow them to bring the lawyer with them, but the lawyer doesn't argue out the case. The lawyer just sits there.
Thank you very much for your time, and it's always a great honor to have the Rosh Yeshiva with us.
Bye-bye.
We have with us on the phone from Borough Park, Rabbi Zalam Graus, who's arguably the most famous Toen Rabbani, the most famous Toen in America. He learned in Belz in Eretz Yisrael. He was a Rosh Yeshiva in Belz, a Ram in Belz. After that, he was one of the editors of the Oitzer HaPoskim, which is basically one of the foundations that any Dayan will use. He's a Toen for over 45 years. He's a Mechaber of 6 Seforim, including 2 Krachim on Kol of the Rishuyos of Erevin. He's a Mechaber of 3 or 4 Chalakim called Bari V'Shema and other Seforim. Welcome, Rabbi Graus.
Yes, hi.
Rabbi Graus, our first shaila is, and I know this is not a comfortable shaila because you never want to get between a person and his parnasa, but the look, both Rashi and the Rambam, the Mishnah says, Al tasatz b'cha k'orchei hadayanim, has a very negative view of the concept of having sort of a lawyer in Bais Din. When I say a lawyer, I mean a Toanim, a from a lawyer, right? Not an American lawyer, but and the reason being that the Rambam says, because he teaches him, he teaches the Baldin. If they ask you this, right? He says, and it's kiluhim orchu adayan. They make a practice case. Vehizir mihidamis lahem. He says, "Sheyul ritzayne loymar sheyizer sheyulmeid echad mi balei adin tainisha tayileyu." You should not teach him, and not only that, even if you know that the other party is a ganif, vafilu yedeyashu ashuk. Even if you know that your side is being ripped off by an unsavory, the Rambam says we do not want Orchei Dayanim, and here I'm putting words, and I imagine the reason is because it contaminates the Bais Din system, and I imagine in your life you've seen enough Tayanim who come to Bais Din, and they're less than 100% honest, and they pull every trick out of a bag. So the Rambam is against it, the Rashi is against it, many Paiskim are against it, the Rashbash writes against it, all the way down to the Aruch HaShulchan, who's like the last Paisik, and he says, we quoted before on the ear, but basically the gist of the Aruch HaShulchan is in Siman Yud Zayin, Sif Yud Gimel Tezvav. He says, even though there's a concept of Psach Picha Le'ilam, but it has to be, he says it needs a lot of hispoinus, Yeshivah Das, is really Lashon Rambam, Shalayik Orchei Dayanim. Why? Because he says it distorts the system, and I've been to Dinei Torah, you have two, it's a win at all costs, and a lot of the Orchei Dinim will just say anything they can to win for their clients, whereas if the Bais Din said, look, we're not allowing Tayanim here, we're a Bais Din of three, we're smart people, we've seen everything, we want to question each Baldin personally, get to the bottom. The Shulchan Aruch, the Rishonim seem to think that that's a more just system, but it doesn't work that way, and I'd like your feeling about this issue.
Rabbi Lichtenstein, I'm sorry to tell you, you had a very long question, and you put already a ground that is not incorrect. I'm sorry. If you learn the Mishnah is definitely referring to Dayanim. Das atzmecho k'orcha Dayanim. L'ksheyu baldinim omdil v'necho yu b'necho k'rishoyim. K'sheniftorim b'necho yizakoyim k'shekiblen Hadin. And further, have a marbe lach kores oedim. If you learn all the Mishnahs is referring to a Dayanim. And the Dayan should not be as the Orach HaDayan. That means you have to be careful. If you are Dayan, you have to be careful how you speak and what is your question if you not learning one side to say differently. That means you, Dayan, should not be as the Orach HaDayan. There's no any reference in the Mishnah against Orach HaDayan. In contrary, you see from the Mishnah that's a concept that it was usually done. And if you look in Shulchan Aruch is the halacha is saying about the Dayanim. In contrary, in Shulchan Aruch is Siman Yud Zayin, Sif Yud. That is the halacha in this Perek Ovis, and that is saying there that it's Sif Tes. I'm sorry, I didn't remember it correctly.
Yeah.
Roa
Dayan
yeah. Roa Dayan schus leechod mem, ubaldim mevakesh leomroi, ve'eino yedea lechaber hadvorim, o shero shemitztaer, elhatz la'atzmoi, betainis emes, upnei achemo vakas, nistalko memenu, o nishtabesh, mipnei asichlus, arei ze muter lesa'adoi, ulavino et tchilas hadovor, mishum ptach psicho leilem, vetzorich lisyashev, kedei.
Okay, yes. Rabbi Graus, I understood your point. You're saying al tasas means if you're a Dayan, don't act as a lawyer, right?
Yes, but this was a common concept in the entire world. Is nobody will deny the right of any litigant to have a professional lawyer, professional representative.
Right.
Under the communist system and any dictatorships, any tribe in Africa won't deny that. That is a common elementary right. And let me finish. If you deny these rights, you know who will going to win? These strong guys, what will take a lady what came out from the school, she's not familiar with the slang of the Bais Din. She doesn't know how to speak in front of the Bais Din. She has to have a representative. Okay. And always the strong guy will... Yes.
But you're conflating. Let's go through your issues. The Mishnah, you rightfully said, Al Tas Atzvah Karached Dayanim. Now, I don't know how to learn Pshat in a Mishnah by myself. So in Yeshivah, they taught me, you look at the Mefarshim. What does the Rav say? Al Tas Atzvah Karached Dayanim. I'll quote the Rav exactly. What is Orchei Dayanim? Ka'oisan Hanashim Sh'orchim U'Mesadrin Taines Lifnei Dayanim. So he's learning the Mishnah. Don't make yourself like those people who are Mesader Balei Din.
No, you should. The Dayan. Excuse me. The Dayan.
It doesn't say that.
Rabbi Lichtenstein. The Rambam and all the Mefarshim saying that the Dayan should not behave as the lawyer.
Rabbi, let me quote the Rambam in the Pirush HaMishnayos, right?
Well, you know what? I'll open the Pirush HaMishnayos. Yes, one second. Yes. הם אנושים שלומדים התנ"ס והדיונים עד שיהיו בקיאים בידי יודם מדיניהם שמחברים שאול אם אדם ככה נהג שאיתם בלתם כך כי הם אורך הבדין. בלדין מפני זה כאורך הדיונים. נו. כאילו אורך הדיונים מפני...
The Rambam does not...
Yes, the Rambam mentions. No.
The Rambam says, do not make yourself like Orchei Hadayanim. What's Orchei Hadayanim?
Who should make himself? Who should make himself?
A person should not make themselves into a lawyer.
No, he's not talking any person. What does it mean? Who is talking to? He's talking to the Dayanim. I'm sorry. That's simple pshat. And that's what the Rambam means.
Well, it's not how I read the Rambam. Rambam says...
excuse me, that's what you have to read the Rambam. Hey, the Rambam first gives a translation, what Orchei Hadayanim means. And he tells you what Orchei Hadayanim means. Therefore, the Dayan should not behave as Orchei Hadayanim. Yes, if you're a Dayan, shouldn't behave like a lawyer. That's clear in Rambam. There's no two ways about that.
Can I ask you a question if that's the case? The Rambam says, Afilu yodeya shehu ashuk. Even if you know one of the parties is being gypped or ripped off, you should not explain to one of the litigants how...
Who shouldn't explain? Who shouldn't explain? The Dayan.
You're saying so a Dayan who knows that a party is being ripped off should not explain to the person how to tie it.
Yes, that's what's written in Shulchan Aruch. That's what you see the Shulchan Aruch.
I don't agree.
Please look at the Shulchan Aruch.
I have the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch says...
Who is talking? Who the Shulchan Aruch talks to? Who the Shulchan Aruch talks to?
I don't agree that.
In Hilchos Dayanim. There is Hilchos Dayanim how the Dayan should behave. And that's what the Dayan says. That's what the Shulchan Aruch says. Ro HaDayan.
Okay, hang on.
Who is talking to?
It's the Shulchan Aruch is telling the Dayanim not to be like Orchei Hadayanim, but Orchei Hadayanim...
exactly. The Dayanim shouldn't be Orchei Hadayanim. And therefore, what? If a Kohen is not allowed to marry a Grusha, what does it mean? It means a Grusha is not allowed to be married. What are you talking?
Let me just read the Aruch HaShulchan. And this is in Siman Yud Zayin, Sif Yud Gimel, and through Tezvav. Yesh Loila Adam. Afilu Kishe'enoi Dayan, when he is not a Dayan. Lisrachek Atzmai. Miliyos K'orchei Hadayanim. Exact words. He's not a Dayan, he says. Let me finish. Tahainu, Shel Yulmoid Le'echad Me'baladinim Tainais. V'loy Malay, Titain Kach V'kach. He's learning the Mishnah Kapshuta. A person should, if he's not a Dayan, should not be in Orchei Hadayanim. Sheyilmoid le'echad me'baladinim tainis loimalei titay kach yitain shekinegdachat kach. And if the other person says like this, tashav like kach. And what's his source? He says the Rambam. He's learning the Pirush HaMishnayos, the Rambam, exactly like I did. V'chein lahatim divrei echad me'abaldinim l'dayan. And Rashi, he's learning Rashi and the Rambam, exactly like I said. Afilu einam dvarim shel sheker. He says, even if your side is not saying the truth. V'chein ein liyayis le'echad me'bal dinim lases davar beheter. He says it very explicitly. The Rambam and Rashi are talking about afilu kishe'enei dayan.
Therefore, in looking Aruch HaShulchan in Hilchos Arshoah, and he speaks about that, and he says there that if you take schar, you are mutter. Below schar is mesaber ari below loy. If you take schar, you are mutter. And if you look up in the Gemara, simply in the Gemara, nobody is able to cholik. In Ksubes, Daf Nun Beis, and in Daf Pevov, is Rabbi Yochanan learned his kroivo how to taine. And the Gemara sagt, altas atzmach ochik tayonim, b'sorch altis salem shaine. And that's in Ksubes, 2 times.
I know that's Nun Beis. Wait,
yes, that means, and the same Aruch HaShulchan, what you quoted, it's saying in Siman Kuf Chofei, if I don't mistake what the Siman is, but he's saying the same thing that Hilchas HaShoah, that the Rosh says there as Misaber Aliv Roy Loy Zebo Barsho, Zog the same. 1 second, if you give me a minute, I'll look at it up.
But you're jumping. Let's not talk about when you're getting paid.
1 second. Asheloi tov oso ba'amo ze abo ba'sho.
Right.
Is Zog is the Ramos says yes shomrim da en yochad vasim shmuz. And 1 second. The kozman she'amur she'u alem baltanis misaba ribeloi abeloi sikdei la'atzu oshik miya oshkoi mitzvikovit. And the Aruch HaShulchan says there, it's only below schar. Abel b'schar is like a korev, what's mutter.
Okay, Rabbi Graus, so let's go through your points one by one, okay? The Gemara in Ksubis, Daf Nun Beis and Beis that you quoted, says a story where you had an almana, and it's almana nizonis minichsa, it was actually an almana, and she died, and she had sold her ksuba. So the Gemara says that if she needs money for medicine, if it has an exact price, it comes out of the ksuba. It doesn't come out of the ksuba, but if it has an exact price, it comes out of the ksuba. So what happened? They came to Rabbi Yochanan, and Rabbi Yochanan, he told him an eitzah. He told the daughter of this woman an eitzah how to avoid having her ksuba seized. So they came to either Rabbi Nachman or Rabbi Yochanan, and he said, "Here's an eitzah." And then he regretted saying it. He said, "Because I'm making myself like an urchei hadayanim." So like Aruch HaShulchan, right? So and this is brought down, right, by all the poskim. So what's my point? Neither one was a Dayan in the case that they were asked. And yet, when they were asked to act as a lawyer for this person, they said that's a bad thing, even though they were not a litigant. So this is an exact riot to the way the Aruch HaShulchan is learning Rashi and the Rambam, that being an Urchei Dayanim, he says l'chol adam, it's bad to be because we don't want to corrupt the judicial system. I'm just learning Pashim Shad in the Gemara, and that's how the Aruch HaShulchan learned. It doesn't say in the Gemara that they were Dayanim in that case. So let me ask you another question. You're a Toanim for many years, right? Don't you often see where people, you're bringing out a very valid point, that if you have an innocent, like a simple, honest woman goes to court, and she's going to have on the other side of her a geribene, a goslin, she's not going to know how to deal with it. And you're saying a lawyer provides a real value, a Toanim provides a real value. But I want to ask you on the other, and that's an unanswerable point. I concede that point. It's obvious. My question to you is, there's no doubt, I don't think anybody in their right mind could say that if you have a very innocent person against a very geribene person, and nobody explains to her case, she's going to come handicapped to Bais Din. That's one side of it. But on the other side of it, you have, and I'm sure you've encountered, Toanim who will say anything. And it's to them, the Bais Din is just a way to earn a living, and they notch how many victories they have, and they will concoct the craziest highness. And so how do we balance that with the need for innocent people to have representation?
Okay, if you want to speak in practical way, I think that you wouldn't advise for anybody to go in court, step in court without legal representation. And no judge would advise it. And therefore, the system in the entire world, if you don't have money to represent, to hire a lawyer, the government will give you like food stamps, like any needs, because the government feels that this is elementary need. The person, like the thing that a person cannot eat It doesn't have to be the government support them the same way the government support them to have a lawyer. And you wouldn't advise anybody. The same thing is in Bais Din. Don't fool yourself that the Bais Din is different. Now, you have a question of injustice. Yes, some people earning living by injustice. That is including Dayanim, including rabbis, including doctors, including dentists, including plumbers. Yes, yes. And if the Dayan is smart enough, he may stop it. And if he sees that that's a practice, he may deny his access. But you cannot deny elementary rights before that you shouldn't go to a doctor because you don't know the doctor will make a hole in your tooth and you don't need it. That's not a practice. That's not spoken because there are people, unjust people, unfair people. Therefore, you should deny rights of a person. And this is something that's so illogical. I don't understand the whole discussion. Now in this world, that everybody has the right, not now, it's hundreds of years anchored in the system. People want to change. People use simple solutions for very complicated problems. That is the entire our community recently. They think everything can be fixed with their head. What's about Dayanim? What's about other crooks? What's about people that give all kind of bogus solutions, health, and whatever you want? You may raise any issue, any item in this world, any occupation. There's a lot of crooks. And therefore...
So Rabbi Graus, let me ask you, you're a Dayan yourself. You're a Dayan, right? If you had a choice, two litigants come in front of you, and you were given the choice to say, listen, you were given that you can come yourself, explain to me your case, I will cross-examine you. Or come with representation and have your lawyers present your case. Which would you prefer?
I would definitely say for some people that they cannot represent themselves, specifically with the other side is totally more powerful. Or even if you're not powerful, you don't know what the points to explain. You're missing very important items that it's very hard to explain what and where. I'll tell you, if you have a minute, I'll tell you on simple, it was the first case I touched in my life.
Okay.
There was a case that usually I was working at a post, and some other Toanim, they had a case, they felt they cannot do it, they felt that the case is getting lost, they referred it to me. Came to me a case, it was a middle case, that a couple lived with our children, and he died, and they had an apartment. It was proven that the apartment was bought from compensation what she got from Germany. And it's clear that the entire apartment belonged to her. Even if it was both names, because the money came from her Germany compensations. Pitzuim, it's called in Eretz Yisrael. It was in Eretz Yisrael the case, in Eida Charedes. It was very interestingly, the case was clear, and after that they sent it to me. I don't know why, but I asked a simple question. Where was she during the war? Where? What lager? They start to laugh. She was at Israel already before the war. Oh, but her husband was had a lot of knowledge in these procedures. He made all kinds of documents for her and she got Pitzuim. Now, it's a totally different case in one item, in one information, because she was not entitled to that money. It was his efforts that she got that money.
It was fraud. It was fraud. Hello, she shouldn't have gotten the money at all. It was fraud.
You are right.
Since he did the fraud, she doesn't get the money. They really neither. I don't know. What do you do in such a case when they got the money and fraud?
Yes, that's a complicated case. But you see some point of information. What was innocently I asked, where was she? I don't know. Other Yom, why I asked this question? Who cares where she was? But I revealed a big important issue that turned down, upstairs down the entire case. And I may tell you tens of such cases, but this it was maybe my first case. I remember it well.
So, Rabbi Graus, let me ask you, do you often, and I appreciate an honest answer, because even though, do you often come across Toanim, as I've heard a lawyer, I said by our Shabbos table we had one of the most prominent lawyers in the New York area, and he said there's an older lawyer at the end of his career who's been in front of the highest courts in the country, and he had said by the table, he said all the lawyers, it's just about winning. They'll write anything to win. They'll say anything to win. They'll take any side of the argument, whoever pays them more, and he felt that litigants, if the courts wanted to get to the truth, they'd be much better off if they could question the litigants, right? Do you find that you come across Toanim who it's basically, it's just about the money, it's win at all costs, they'll say anything and do anything? I mean, do you find that?
Okay, let me tell you. Lawyers, and specifically in criminal cases, they have no obligation whatsoever to go to the truth because the government has the obligation to prove. In the civil system is a little bit different. But if you go in Wikipedia, in Toanim, look up, you will see that Toanim are much in a higher standard and required a higher standard than lawyers. I'm speaking about Israel because Israel, the Toanim have license, and I had also license.
Let's talk about America. But let's talk about America,
yes.
Where you've been
practicing.
In
America,
for the last 25
I would say
years.
Toanim are in a higher standard than lawyers. But it is an obligation of the Rabbonim, of the Dayanim, to ask questions the litigant himself. That is a common procedure. But don't think for one moment that if you deny the rights, then it will be better, it will be much worse. And I must tell you an interesting thing. You will never believe me that, but that's the fact of life. People say much of lies against them, approximately not, I would say 30% or 40% of their lies are against them. That means people...
Explain that.
People don't know the din. They say lies against them, against their interest. It's very interesting. I'll tell you an interesting story. I was by a din Torah. It was a Toen, but he didn't know how to learn. I was only a Dayan there, but there was two Toyanim there. The husband and wife, a divorce case. The husband claimed that the money, what is in the bank, was from his nad. You know what nad means. You'll explain it in English.
His dowry.
Yeah. Yes. And she claimed that the money is from her working after the marriage. Halachically, everybody said for the other side. Because Masa Yodeo is Lebaila. But she understood that she worked for the money. That's her money. Right. And he understood that I got the money. That's me. Each party, that's an actual story. And I wouldn't tell you the Toanim's name, but the Toanim was not a learned person. And he understood it barbatish. And I'm telling you again, it's hard to believe that. But people say at least 30-40% lies, what's against their interest. And sometimes a Torah will tell them, please don't be stupid, don't lie.
Rabbi Graus, let me ask you, you said something, you said in Eretz Yisrael, to be a Toen, you have to be licensed. In America, anybody could put the name Rabbi in front of their name and become a Toen an hour later. The bar to entry is very low.
Yes.
Additionally...
But the same thing is for a Dayan.
Yes.
Exactly same license you must have.
Yes. Let me continue. You just the same thing to be a Bais Din. All you have to do is you have to buy a shingle, or maybe you could handwrite it, hang it on your door, give yourself the name of an Bais Din of your Bais Din. It could be usually, preferably, some tiny city in Europe, or maybe not so tiny city in Europe, and you're a Bais Din. Now you're somebody. You get a hazmana to the Bais Din of so and so by a Toen so and so, and you could get a siruv. By the way, you could get 3 siruvs in 1 week. You know that, right? And
yes,
you're facing some Mickey Mouse Bais Din and some Mickey Mouse or corrupt Toen on the other side. And the next thing you know, you could have tzedler hanging all over the neighborhood about you as a Mesarev. This upsets a lot of people. Do you think it rightfully or wrongfully? I'm asking you now, not as a Toan, not as a Dayan, and I'm not attacking in any way personally, but as somebody who for 45 years has seen the system. I don't mean to blame this on the Tayanim. I'm saying my name is Beryl or Yussel. I just got a hazmana from somebody 3 days in a row, and 3 hazmanas one after the next to some Mickey Mouse Bais Din. And I'm saying, I think I'd be better in court. At least the people there have licenses. At least there's some procedures, there's some practices. If you have a complaint against an attorney, you could write to the Bar Association. You could write to the chief judge in New York. Here, I'm just helpless. It's somebody. I don't even know if he learned in Yeshivah. He could have been the C student in the class. He made himself a Dayan. The other guy made himself a Dayan. How do I deal with that?
Okay, you're asking me how to deal. The very simple answer: go to one of the commons Botedinim, or send a letter that you are ready to go. One of the 3 most famous Botedinim that is being accepted by most mainstream people, and that will be a shield for you. You show your honesty. You are ready to go to a Bais Din.
But they could still give you a siruv, though.
Everything is maybe. I may write whatever you want, but I'm not speaking about it. But on the other hand, you will have proof that you are an honest guy. You were ready to go to a Bais Din, to 3 Botedinim.
Okay.
One of the 3. Or you want to? Yeah. What everybody may write on you, you cannot prevent it. Somebody may write that you are a Khal Shabbos Fresh. You are whatever you can. It is Pashkevils goes on always. You have no solution for that.
So, Rabbi Graus, let me ask you, and you can decline, but the goal here is if you had to give us these 3 Batei Dinim in America, you'll get the most honest Dayanim, the most knowledgeable Dayanim, a fair case. Who would you choose as the 3 top Batei Dinim?
Okay. I will tell you, I don't like to give names. I don't like to handle with names, specifically in public, but even private. Even people ask me in private, who should take a lawyer, who should take a Toanim, who should take a Bais Din. No, I don't like it. I only give you general rules. I am against handymans. That's the first rule. What I call handyman, somebody is a Rosh Yeshivah, a Rav, a Mashgiach, a Dayan. He is not good. Not so because he's not honest or honest. He doesn't know what honest means even. You have to go to a Dayan what is totally devoted to the Torah for many, many reasons. First, if he's devoted to the Torah, then probably he's an honest guy. He's addicted to justice because this is his occupation. Like, you cannot go to somebody, a good painter, and you will ask him, he should paint stam kacha. It won't work. He's like to do professional work. That is his occupation. Don't go to a Bais Din that doesn't have addicted to justice. People that devoting their life only to that. If that's only a side job, don't go to them. That is the first principle. And it's always good to ask around. In the Chazon Ish, the people say B'Shem the Chazon Ish, the same thing that you go to a doctor. Before you go to a doctor, you ask around who is a good doctor, who's an honest doctor. The same thing if you ask a Rav or Shaila, you have to ask around who is an honest person.
And by the way, today is the Chazon Ish's yard site, so you're saying it's nice to say Dava b'Shem Amris, if so, it's Dava b'Shbekeva.
Thank you,
okay,
thank you.
That's rule number 2. What would you say? Give us rule number 3.
There is people have to know that you have to go to rabbis that have a lot of experience, that have knowledge. I'll give you an example. We had in the Torahs, people are familiar now a little bit better with computers than they were for 10, 15 years ago. But we had in Torahs between programmers. And simply, they were both parties not able to explain for the Dayanim what the dispute is. And the Rabbanim had no whatsoever knowledge about computer, about programming. They didn't know how it's being built, what the history is. You're talking about something sister Torah. I have approximately 15 years or more a tailored program. And I had a little bit knowledge what the problems are. In my language, they hired me. I was simply able to explain what Moshe says and what Yankel says. What is the problem? Why they cannot work with this program? What he did for them, what he didn't do for them. That is simply, I'm giving you an example. If you go to a Rav that doesn't know doesn't have a system, the tax system, for example. You have a lot of the Torah is very complicated between Yorshim or between Shutfim, how the tax should be handled. If he has other assets, and how they should be handled. And if people don't understand the tax remedies, it's very hard to deal with them.
You said one of them is go to a Bais Din that this is all they do. It's not a side job. Go to a Bais Din that you ask about and you've inquired from the Chazon Ish. You say, make calls, who has a good reputation. And 3, it's important that they have expertise in the business area or in the litigation area that's being discussed. Those are your 3 rules. Let me ask you a last question. You're approached by a tzada, a litigant, and you listen to his case, and he says, listen, I'm going to give you a $10,000 retainer, and as you listen to his case, you realize he's absolutely wrong. Do you take the case or not? You could win it, but he's wrong.
Look, Rabbi Lichtenstein, if you ask around, I am approximately, I would say, 35%. When people come to me, I don't accept the case.
That's very honorable. Let me ask you another case then. Let me take the question and not from you. If you had to pick the 10
and believe me, it's not always because they are simply liars or simply they don't have the case. They don't have a chance to win.
Right. Now, would you say that most Dayanim would say the same thing? Most Toanim would say the same thing.
Dayanim, you're talking?
No,
Dayanim?
Toanim.
Let me explain it. It's sometimes very hard to know, and I may make a mistake too. That means people come and I think have no chance, and in fact they have a chance, or the other way around.
But I'm not sure. You feel they're dishonest, they're wrong. You see that the guys are crook.
Dishonest is one of the components, and right. people think that this Hadin Torah inch is honest, not honest. As of today's, it's very hard to be not honest. I'll explain a little bit. Today is a world of emails. Every business is being tracked by emails. And it's very hard to deny. For example, it's never happened that somebody came to a Hadin Torah, I lend you $100,000. No, I don't know you. That doesn't happen. Why? Because people don't give cash, give checks. People make stories. There is emails. It's not this is what the main thing what the Torah is about. That's in the street. The street people think that's only about sheker and emes. Everything is about sheker and emes. It's wrong. You have a hilchas toyim v'nitten that 90% of that is not dealing with emes or sheker. I have now a big Din Torah. People made a contract. I'll tell an example. People made a contract, but the price is not in it. The question is, halachically, if this is a kinyan or not. And these kind of questions comes up every day, every hour. And people think, oh, he's a liar, he told me the price is this. It's not the issue, it's the price. He admitted that I sold him. Yes, I admitted that I sold you, but there's no star here. That is everyday issues. People in the street likes motion, likes attractive issues. Sheker, he's a shachter and he's a liar. This is not the Din Torah. Most Din Torah is not about sheker and emes.
Rabbi Graus, it was an honor having you on, and your 45 years experience is very apparent.
Thank you for listening to me.
Okay. Thank you so much, Rabbi Graus.
Zalam.
We have with us on the phone Rav Avrohom Kahn. He's the Rav of Khal of New City. He's a Dayan in the Bais Din, Vaad Hadin v'Hira. He's a Talmud of Brisk, of Rabbi Stern. He has smicha from Zalam Goldberg, from Rabbi Yosef Acker. He was a member of the Khal of Oitzra Poiskim. Welcome, Rabbi Avrohom.
Thank you so much for having me. How are you, Rabbi David?
So, Rabbi Avrohom, tell me, you have a Bais Din. Do you accept Toanim? What is your Bais Din's attitude towards Toanim?
Oh wow, we're jumping right into it. So I opened up the Bais Din under a Mayor Stern. He asked me to open up this Bais Din a couple of years back, and he had certain, let's call it Gimel Aver Chamuras. He had certain guidelines that he said are conditions to opening up the Bais Din, and one of them were no Toanim. That was a strict policy that we cannot allow Toanim in the Bais Din.
And I'm curious, what were the other two? Educate us.
The other two was he wanted flat fees. The Bais Din cannot charge per an hour. It has to be a flat fee. And the three, he wanted a review board. He wanted that the Bais Din is going to be extremely transparent, and we should have a review board of Chashuv Dayanim and Eretz Yisrael that would be able to review, which we would explain our psukim. They could see all the transcripts from the stenographer, that it should be very transparent, that people should feel comfortable coming to the Bais Din.
Now, is there any other Bais Din in America that has these three conditions?
All three, no. I know there are Bais Dins that provide reasonings for why they have Din Torahs, why they came to Psak. They don't have a review board that looks into it, but they provide reasonings. There's certain Bais Dins, like the Bais Din of America, that does not allow Toanim. I recently read a Bais Din in Lakewood that they charge different prices. If you come alone, it's cheaper, and if you come with a Toanim, they charge you a little more. Maybe that was the
So these three conditions are groundbreaking. And walk me through, what are the reasons for the three conditions? No Toanim. Walk me through that.
So I'll go backwards. The review board for transparency, Rabbi Stern felt was very important that Dayanim should be able to answer. People shouldn't feel that Dayanim could just do whatever they want, when they want. They should have to answer how they came to a reason, why they came to a reasoning, and they should have a review board that they should know they're upheld by certain standards. Flat fees, he felt. And you feel that many Bais Dins do not provide background reasoning, and there's this feeling a plaintiff could have, or a defendant, that it's sort of excuse me for getting political. It's like the Adam Schiff secret hearings to impeach a president. Like, it just doesn't smell clean. Like, if you believe you're telling the truth, why are you hiding? Yeah, I mean, Rabbi Stern was very, very careful. Whenever I spoke to him, he didn't speak about other Batei Dinim. He just told me how he wants this Bais Din to be established, and he wanted extreme transparency. He wanted to put back a faith. He wanted to put back faith in the system. People were very upset with the system. People have come to him and told him different facts. And he told me, actually, in the beginning, 5-6 years ago, he told me to go around, sit by other Batei Dinim, try to take and learn lessons and positive things that I see by other Batei Dinim. And I spent many years running around.
So what are some of the complaints people have about the lack of transparency?
I mean, that itself, that it's very, very, people don't mind, I believe people don't mind losing a case as much as feeling in the dark of why they lost the case. It's not explained. Most people are not educated in Choshen Mishpat. And again, most people draft up their contract with lawyers,
and not Rabbanim, and therefore they could come to a Bais Din and they could lose for a technical reason. And I always tell people it's not it's not supposed to be fear. It's the honest psak, and it could be that you had something that was ribbis in your contract, and Bais Din's not going to award it, even though both parties made it up together that they're going to pay this ribbis, because Bais Din cannot award ribbis. But when people hear the explanation is written, and people know Bais Din has to answer up to a higher authority, it creates a faith in the system.
Okay. Now talk about flat fees. Can I ask, what are the flat fees?
So for a Chosh Mishpah case, it's $500 flat fee.
That's it.
No matter how long the case takes us.
In other words, because one of the problems that we have is that Bais Din has become for rich people, and if you're a divorcee or an alman or a garush, and you have a job and you're a stenographer, and your cost of going to Bais Din could be tens of thousands of dollars. I've seen Dinei Torah that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. The Tayanim are $250 an hour minimum. That includes travel time. That includes that they always daven mincha in middle. That includes coffee breaks, etc. So you're saying that the concept of flat fees, 500 and no Tayanim to pay, basically allows an honest hearing for somebody who's trying to make ends meet.
100%, and it incentivizes the Bais Din, which sometimes I have to control. It incentivizes the Bais Din to move sometimes quicker to get a case over, because they lose money as long as the case schleps. And the Shulchan Aruch says, having Misunim Badin, based on the Mishnah, that you have to, take everything carefully. And that's why we have the review board that checks to make sure Bais Din did their due diligence, looks into the evidence, reached out to all people who we have to reach out to determine a final psak. But both of those together, the review board with a flat fee, creates a face that people could come in and they know they're walking out with just paying $500.
Wow. Is there anybody else who does this?
A flat fee. I've heard that there are other Batei Dinim that they'll look over the case. They'll look over the case and they'll give a flat fee. They'll say, this case is going to take us a certain amount of hours. We're giving a flat fee. But there's a specific procedural rule. I don't know. I haven't heard another Bais Din that has done that yet. Right,
and the Torah tells us, "Lo seder pnei gadol, but tzedek tishpat amisecha." Right, and lo sate mishpat of yoincha beriva. And the biggest lo sate is when the person doesn't get a hearing because they can't afford it.
It's a problem. It's a problem. We have never in Gittin, which is a whole different process. And there's a different fee. There we had times that people have come in and they told us they cannot afford, and then both sides didn't pay because we can't take from one side and not another. But in Chosh Mishpat, the $500, we've never heard a complaint.
So let me ask you a question. Somebody comes in and it's a get, and they can't afford it. What do you do?
So by a get we have a whole different. By a get we actually try to do mediation versus arbitration. We try to mediate because to force a psak of how to deal with someone's children and it's not a healthy experience by a get. We try. We have certain cases where
let's say they say we can't afford the mediation. What do you do?
we move forward. We move forward. We don't charge. We're not going to hold back a couple because the alternative is them ending up in court, which is going to end up costing much more. We charge for a get, which includes a mediation. We have an in-house attorney that drafts up the agreement once the couple agree. It's notarized on the spot. The get's done on the spot. Altogether, we charge $3,500 aside through the mediation. Again, the mediation could take many hours, and we go back and forth. And each party is provided their own mediator, and they sit in two separate rooms. It's a huge process. So we charge $3,500 only if we're successful in closing the case. If we're not successful, then everybody walks away.
And how many hearings? How many times could it schlep a mediation?
Baruch Hashem, usually I could say 90% of the mediation cases are ended within one day. From the most complicated, we have had cases that people came in at 9 o'clock in the morning and left the next morning, 11 o'clock in the morning with a guest. We had 20, 24, 25, 26-hour cases, and everybody stayed. And that specific case, I remember that one side never ended up paying.
Wow. It's truly amazing. Now talk to me about the no Toanim.
So no Toanim was actually the first rule that Meir Stern made. He felt, I'm quoting his words, he felt that they don't help the system. He felt that there was a little bit of a corruption with the Toanim. He was very against. He kept on repeating to me because in the beginning I was fighting with him because again I wanted people to show up to the Bais Din, and if I'm not going to allow Toanim, I knew that that's going to be a major disadvantage. People are not going to want to show up, and I was trying to convince him. We'll have strict rules for Toanim. We'll make the Toanim sign certain papers, what they're allowed to do. And he wasn't budging. It was something that he was never budging. I'll tell you an interesting story. About a year ago, I got a phone call from Bnei Brak for a Mendel Shafran that there was a very high-profile Hasidic case that nobody was successful in closing. A lady was waiting for a get for 11 years. Nobody was successful in closing it. And he communicated with the Belzer Rebbe that they should come to a non-Hasidic Beis Din. They should come to us. They called me up after Simchas Torah to bring the case to us. Both sides were willing to come, but the husband said he's only willing to come with the Dayan. So I went down to Meir Stern and I asked him for permission. This specific case, it's open for 11 years. We finally convinced him to come down to a Bais Din, but he's coming with the Dayan. Could we allow it? And he said, no. I said, you don't understand. It's 11 years. We're not going to. And he said, I don't care. This is a rule that we have in the Bais Din, no Dayanim. And I'm sad to say, still till this day, the lady doesn't have her guest, and he never showed up to any Bais Din. And I begged Meir Stern many times, but he wouldn't budge. By him, it was one of the Gimel Meir Chamuras.
And did he do it because of the halacha, or did he do it because of hashkafa? Because the Aruch HaShulchan is pretty clear, no Toanim. The Rambam is very clear, no Toanim, right? Did he do
so
it
the Rambam
because
is very clear. The Rambam is very, but the truth is, Meir Stern didn't do it because of halacha. I mean, he mentioned to me a few times the famous Nachal Shiva that says Toanim are just mevalbel the Dayanim. But it wasn't coming from halacha. It was coming from practically what he was seeing of the manipulation of Shulchan Aruch. He was very clear to me many times. He used to quote to me a Maral. The Maral says that in the Siv Hadin, in the Siv Salem, the Maral has a Siv Hadin over there. I think it's 3-4 pages long, and he says over there, the Maral, that din has to be emes lamita, like the Gemara says, klad dun din emes lamita. And the Maral explains the difference between emes and emes lamita is, hayra could be emes. Sometimes you makel, sometimes you machmer, but there's, in din, if you're helping one person, you're hurting another person. So it's only midas hadin. That's why the Gemara says nasa shutav lakadosh baruch hu b'maisa bereishis, where in maisa bereishis says the moral lakadosh baruch hu created the world with midas hadin. So he used to quote to me that there's no manipulation, there's no favoritism. You can't help one person. He didn't understand how a Toen could go advocate for one person and try to manipulate the Shulchan Aruch, and there are ways to do it. I could tell you there are ways to pull shtick in Shulchan Aruch and make believe there's certain chazakas you could play around with. And I even saw from Rabbi Yashiv on the Gemara that speaks in Ksubas there of Nachman for a karev of his, was acted as a Toen, and then he had charata that he did it, the famous Gemara over there. So Rabbi Yashiv in the Sefer Aris that was printed, he says even when a person's allowed to be a Toen in Shulchan Aruch, it's not when they convince a person to do shtick. And he gives an example, Rabbi Yashiv, like if somebody's going to say Moed b'Miksus and he's going to be obligated to shua, and the Toen fast says Halech, give the money on the spot, so you're not obligated to make the shua. Rabbi Yashiv felt that was a manipulation. He writes that's a manipulation of halacha.
That's the Gemara. The Gemara that Rabbi Kahn is referring to is in Ksubas and Daf Peheim and Beis, and the Gemara says that Rav Nachman had a karev who sold her ksuba b'tayvas hana. And then the Kuchim came, and her kid wanted to protect the ksuba. Rav Nachman gave her a very simple legal loophole, and it's a legal loophole. He said, "Be moichel," and you be moichel, they won't be able to claim it. Total legal loophole, like tax loophole, legal loophole. And then he said he regretted it. He said that my job of a Toen is not to find legal loopholes, even if they are legal, because it's not about finding shtick. And I could tell you that, unfortunately, I've been involved in a few Dinei Torah. When you're in business, you get called to Dinei Torah, and I go. And the Toanim, many of the Toanim that I have seen are just gangsters. They'll say anything, they'll do anything, they'll say any trick, any lie. They bring up from, there's like the zoo of strange shittas. Like you go through, there's the Ramban, the Rajba, the Tashba, and then there are like these strange shittas, like wacko opinions, and the Bais Dins take them seriously. Like, I found a tzad and a Devrei Chaim who brings a Rashbash from a... But the Shachs is not like that, and the machinations and and so you're saying that the goal of you is to avoid. You're saying you're going up Gemara and Shulchan Aruch without all the modern, practical, accepted kunsten. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, that's the Nachal Shiva. Nachal Shiva discusses about Tayanim bringing precedent to Bais Din, bringing different Mechaber, and he writes over there that these people are mevalbal to Bais Din, and they just bring shittas. They find these shittas yachids that people could say Hamoitzi Mechaber Olavaraya based on. And I think there's a Ketzois in Siman Daled in Choshesh, but it even quotes a Zohar HaKadosh. I think maybe it's the only time it quotes a Zohar that says if someone should become a mufsik to be able to say Hamoitzi Mechaber is an Isser.
Yeah, and let me quote the Nachal Shiva. The Nachal Shiva says like this: "Tipak ruchan, may they lose their soul. Oisen haboim laden al pisifrei v'chiburei gedolim." And he says they make all kinds of bulbulim and mices and mavalvulen u'metzaftzefin ve'eniyadin mametzaftzefin. He says mechapsin b'sfarim. They look at all b'sfarim svaris v'dinim ashiyashru beineim. He just says they look and they find all these shittas, koilten es hapsoiles v'zorken es ha'oichel. Exactly this. They find all these bizarre shittas, and let's face it, there's a expression, 2 Jews, 3 opinions. And in halacha, you go through I'll tell you a funny story. When I learned in the Mir, so Rabbi Shmulevitz, who actually gave me haskamis and was a chavrusa of mine, was the editor of Oitzim Mefarshei Talmud. And he came in and he proudly showed Reb Nachum the first Oitzim of Herschel Talmud, that it was something he had just completed. And Reb Nachum looked at it, and he looked through it, and Reb Rafal asked him, "What do you think?" So Reb Nachum said, "I'll tell you something interesting." He said around 300 years ago there was Reb Kivega. Reb Kivega was 250 years ago, right? 300 years ago. He said at the same time there was the Drush Reb Kivega, Chidusha, Chuvas from Kivega. There was somebody else who had a lot of money. He was a rav in a little shtetl. He had a backer. His name was Reb Pinchas, and he wrote Chuvas Reb Pinchas. And they both sold. What happened? The next generation, Pinchas wasn't around anymore. The Chuvas Reb Kivega was a classic, so this was reprinted, and the Chuvas Reb Pinchas ended up in a library someplace. The next generation afterwards, but the same, you had the Nesivis a little bit. He was a contemporary. He printed the Nesivis. In his town, there was probably a Yid. His name was Reb Zalman. Reb Zalman printed his Chidushim on the Shulchan Aruch. He says the next generation, the Nesivis was, he said it's like water running through a stream. The water comes in dirty, and as it runs through the rocks, it gets cleaner and cleaner. And Khal Yisrael, over the generations, picks out the pearls, and it's just like the water does when it runs through the stream, and the rocks add to the filter, and they discard the psilus. He said, "What have you done with Oitzim of Herschel Talmud?" You said, "Wow, today we only use these 35, 40 Seforim. Let's go back." He said, "You go back, you pick up all the rubbish, and you throw it back into the clean water." Right? And he was very opposed to that. I learned with him at the time with Rabbi Fall, and I remember seeing his face. But so I think that there's all these, exactly what the Nachal Shiva that you're quoting is discussing. When you come, you could start tumbling with, you go to the library, there's, in the Oitzim Talmud, there's 100,000 Seforim already. You can find a sheet that says almost anything.
I'll tell you what's interesting. If I recall the Nachal Shiva, I haven't seen it in a while, ends off Yesh Dayan Ligarboy Lizalzelboy.
That's exact Lashon. Yesh Dayan Ligar Behen Lizalzelon.
So yeah. I remember one time I was sitting by a Talmud of Rav Moshe watching, this is many years back, watching a Din Torah that he was sitting on, and he started the Din Torah saying that Rav Moshe used to sit on Din Torah. Rav Moshe did not allow Tayanim, which I haven't seen written anywhere, but this is what he said, that Rav Moshe did not allow Tayanim. And someone said, but maybe there's a Shittas Yachid, maybe there's someone who I could say, I'm Mechaber Levarai, and if I don't bring a Toen. So number one, Rav Moshe answered to the person, if you think there's a Shittas Yachid, then I probably know it. So you don't need a Toen to tell to me. And he said, worst comes to worst, you could send it to me in the mail. So I always tell people, first of all, the Dayanim, it's their job to sit and learn and harav on the sugya. There's this whole sugya in Shulchan Aruch called Taninon, where Bais Din sometimes is supposed to bring up a taina. There are klolim when it's done, when it's not done, and it's, Rabbi Vaad Yosef has many tshuvas when you say Taninon, when you don't. Rabbi Shawais printed a bunch of klolim in his Krevetz Darkei Torah when you say Taninon. But that's Bais Din's job, and we sit and go through the sugya and see if this Shittas Yachid, you could say Hamoitzi Mechaber Levaraya, even if it's a far Shittas Yachid. And I always tell people, you want to go before a Din Torah and go speak to a Toen and go, get a letter, get a psak, send us an email. I have no problem. That doesn't bother us. Adarabah, someone wants to send us a beautiful maramakim, That's great. But to sit, Rameir Stern felt that they're just going to sit and waste time and be mevalbel the Bais Din, and he made it a very, very strong rule that we cannot have Toanim.
There are Toanim, and we've had on Rabbi Graus, who is one of the most respected Toanim in America. He's here a Shemayim and an Ish Emes, and he's very careful who he selects if he doesn't believe. And he stated something that I thought is a powerful opinion, and it's, even though, it's not like the Rambam necessarily, but there are other poskim who he'll quote, and he'll quote a body of poskim who clearly, and he'll say it's Tanhaga for Doiris. But he said, can you name one court system in the world? American. He said, in the United States, if somebody's indigent, they hire you an attorney, because they recognize there's a concept of Saf Picha Le'ilem, which is one of the heterim that they say. There are people who just can't, they're incapable of defending themselves. And he says, in England, in tribes, they understand that there are people who need somebody to represent themselves. They're tongue-tied, and we meet people. So I understand there's something very thoughtful, and when we were kids, we played the game telephone. You would say a word, sit in a circle. You would say house, and by the time you finished, it was giraffe. And that's what happens through these Toanim. There's no semblance, often, of the emes anymore, which is why the Shulchan Aruch is it, which is why the Aruch HaShulchan, the Rambam, etc. But on the other hand, what do? You send somebody, you have an intimidated, you could see a Beis Yaakov girl going through a divorce. She just can't talk about it. It's intimate things, it's this and that. So aren't we depriving these people of the ability to mount the real defense?
So it's a very good question. I asked this question to Rameir Stern because I have most of the Bais Dinim that I've sat in always had Toanim, and I've seen when they acted inappropriate, and I've seen sometimes they actually helped the entire and they helped their client who was too emotional or couldn't talk. So Rameir Stern opened up the Rambam, that the Rambam is mashma that he brings down the din of psach picha is a din on the Dayanim. It's a Dayanim's job, psach picha. And Rameir Stern explained to me, he said it's your job to figure out how the person could talk. And we opened by us a system that, since we wanted the entire to be streamlined, we have an intake process. That means before the entire, everybody sits down privately with an intake operator who works for the Bais Din, who gathers the information and tells you which documents to bring and sets everything up. And sometimes in those cases, they have to ask permission from the Bais Din. The intake professional comes into the Bais Din and helps their client talk. But the intake person is working for us. Therefore, there's no corruption. There's no saying things that are inappropriate. There's no manipulation of halacha. As a general rule, also, which is very important, and I heard this in the name of Ramosha, and Rameir Stern was very, very happy when I told this to him. By us, there's no discussion of halacha in the entire. People say over a story, and then the Bais Din implements halachos. I always tell people who call me with Bas v'Chalav Shaylos, they start telling me, I had a ben yoimo with a davar charif. I said, tell me the story, and I'll put in if it's a davar charif, and I'll put in if it's a ben yoimo or a ben yoimo. We have people tell us over a story what happened. And then we put in, is this a moed b'mixus? Is this a migui? Does this have a koyach hatayim to it? And Ramesh was very mocked by his mentorius. He used to tell people, don't say over halacha concepts. Tell me over a story, and us as dayanim. And therefore, when the intake person comes and they help the person articulate their claim, if literally the person needs a psach picha, the person just needs to help open up their mouth. But there's no shrine with different marmakoimis. The Bais Din's job is with tanimim, with different sugyas, with knowing the shitas yachid, with knowing how much mechaber l'varai, which knowing all the kolei hirav chayshemishpat, which is what then it's siman chafei. The Bais Din then makes a psak based on that and explains how they derive to the psak.
Now, have you had Balei Din who leave, who feel that by not having Toanim, they were not able to express their case? And I'll give you an extreme case, and I don't have a lot of expertise in this area. Certainly in divorce cases, you could have a woman who feels she was attacked by her husband, raped, etc. She's just not going to be comfortable talking about that in front of a group of men. I mean, have you had people who walked out and felt, if I had been represented, I would have had a different effect? Or is that something
Yeah, so two things. It's a very, very good question. You have to understand that under New York law, if an arbitration does not allow attorneys, then the arbitration could be thrown out in court. And since the place can speak out that the pasuk says shayftim v'shaytrim im ein shaytrim ein shayftim, if you can't enforce your psak, it's not considered a din Torah. So much so, Rabbi Yashiv said that a Bais Din that doesn't make people sign an arbitration agreement doesn't have the koyach of a Bais Din. It's printed in Kanfei Yoina, it's printed in Piskei Din Rabbanut, it's Arachaim HaKadosh that says like that. So we have to make sure that we can enforce our psakim. So we allow attorneys for that reason. And those people, they could come in with an attorney, and in certain cases we have had the client ask us if they could walk out of the room and have the attorney talk on their behalf, especially when it was something that was emotional or extremely sensitive. And we also have, in certain cases...
So Rabbi Kahn, attorneys are just Toanim with a civil license as opposed to a halachic license. So why would you not allow Dayanim, but allow attorneys? Isn't that like a little bit of like...
2 points. It's a very good question. This is what people mock us about. So 2 points. Number one, I don't have the power not to allow attorneys. Legally, I don't have the power. If I'm not going to allow attorneys, my psakim are not enforceable. But I've seen a big difference between attorneys and Dayan. Not by all of them.
Attorneys and Tayanim, you mean?
I'm sorry, attorneys and Tayanim. Number one, attorneys they go to school for ethic classes. That's something that they do. And I've seen a different behavior of ethics. Attorneys, I have one time an attorney not really acted inappropriate by the Bais Din, and I reported him to the bar. If the Tayanim would have some type of bar that I could report them, I had an attorney, and it wasn't a simple case. Then the attorney filed a lawsuit against me, but I've had an attorney report to the bar. There's certain ethics that they have to stand up to. There's a certain procedural conduct that is written on the bar associate website that if they don't act by that, you could report them. Now again, I'm not happy with it. If I was able to have people come without attorneys, I would do it also. But there, my hands are tied. Legally, I have to allow attorneys, or else the psakim are not enforceable. But I'll tell you the truth. I've seen attorneys act in a certain way. Not all, but in the general rule, I've seen attorneys act way more appropriate than I've seen in other Bais Din and Toanim acts.
Now, to be a Dayan, just to be understood, you need no license. You don't need smicha. You don't have to know how to learn it all. I can tell you that. I've seen that. All you need to have basically is you have to hang up a shingle and say you're a Dayan, and preferably have a big mouth. Is that correct?
I think in Eretz Yisrael, there's a licensing course that you have to do. When they made that people should be able to go to court, even Toanim are even allowed to represent people in court.
In America?
In America, there's no qualification.
So there's no bar or anybody to report him to because he never needed a license in the first place.
Exactly.
And how busy is your Bais Din?
Baruch Hashem, we're extremely busy. I know a lot of people who call us up. Believe it or not, when the halacha is that the nitzvah is able to pick the Bais Din, and very often we get letters from other Batei Dinim when the nitzvah wants to pick us, and they write, "Oh, your Bais Din is not considered accepted because you don't allow Tayanim." So other Batei Dinim don't allow people to come to us because we don't allow Tayanim, which is a little bit shocking, but it's part of life. I always tell people that when they go into a deal, that they shouldn't have these issues. They should have an arbitration agreement where they want to go. And in the arbitration agreement, it should say you're accepting that you're going without Tayanim. So that definitely would help save a lot of cost. A person should be a royas and oilid. But we're Baruch Hashem very busy. Certain people are scared who they don't want to come because it's so entrenched in our system that we need Tayanim. And then certain people hear from other people, no, this is about Kavadika system. It works well. There's a review board that checks the psak. It's a flat fee. And Baruch Hashem, we've been extremely busy.
So let me ask you a question. If you're only charging $500 for an entire case, right? And and you have 3 Dayanim, I imagine, right?
We have more. We have many more than 3 Dayanim because we have a lot of cases that we have to do.
But I don't mean that. But have to sit on every case 3 Dayanim, right?
Yeah.
So you have 3 Dayanim. Cases could take multiple hearings, which means it's theoretical. I mean, if you have a case that takes 3-4 sittings and research, it could be hundreds of hours. So you're earning $2 an hour. Why do you do it?
So we're not making money on the $500. The truth is, when I opened up, my plan was to open up for free and not charge it all for the Cheshim Shpa cases. Rameir felt it wouldn't be Bakavidik. We have to charge a minimum until we came out to this number, $500. He felt that the parnasa of the Bais Din is not made from the Din Torah. So we have a whole department that writes up halachic agreements. People could reach out to a Dayan. We have many lawyers who they won't draft an agreement for their Jewish clients without having our approval to look over to make sure whatever they're writing legally coincides with halacha. if it could be questions of a smachta, different problems of kinyanim, and we sit, that's the main parnasa. Every Dayan, his job is to sit over and look over different agreements that lawyers or different people send us. Let it be Heter Iskus, and that's where we make money.
What is a regular Bais Din charge? Yeah, Bais Din Hayrav Munsi. Like, what do they charge an hour?
I think when I used to, I looked into it for a while. I think they charge $250 an hour, $350 an hour.
So it's outrageous. A Bais Din that does not do it for the money, and a Bais Din that does not allow Toanim because they just, look, many of the Toanim, I'm going to get criticized for this. I can tell you, I've been there. They're gangsters. I mean, there are some people, I've had Toanim that I've seen Toanim work in there, I walked out of there and I said to the guy, I said, I don't even know if he's Shema Shabbos. Somebody could say so many shkarim. So you outlaw Toanim, you don't charge money. I mean, is there something here? Are you doing it l'shem shamayim? Is it possible?
We're trying to do it l'shem shamayim. Our plan was, when Rabbi Stern asked me to do this, our plan was to try to change the system and to build a system that people could trust and have other Bais Din who have reached out to me, because we have many, many businesses all over America that have arbitration signed by us. So we could have a business in LA that gets into a dispute, and now they have to fly into us. And the Bais Din in Los Angeles would call me up and say, could you send them to me? Like, why should I make them fly into New York? And I say, if you accept our rules, that you're going to charge a flat fee, that you're going to accept the review board to look over, and it doesn't have to be for all your cases, but this specific case, and no time, I have no problem sending it to you. And
I want to
tell me,
I know Rabbi Stern just marginally, but I met him one time. And if I recall correctly, at the time he wears a jacket, he doesn't wear a frock. Am I correct in that respect?
Yes.
And I remember at the time, at this time he had thousands of Talmidim, and I asked one of Talmidim, he doesn't have a frock, and he said to me, Rabbi Stern has no ears about him. There's no shtick. There's no games. There's no shamashim pushing people in front. And Rabbi Stern is an ish emes.
100%. I don't feel.
And you're saying that the Bais Din that follows pretty much this concept that the person should be emes v'din.
Yes, so that's what we try to strive for.
Rav Kahn, it's an honor to have you on with us. And ish emes is medav zuchen mit licht heint. It's really something special, and it's really
pleasure.
an honor
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me, Reb David.
Bye. Let's go to the chosen winner of this week's riddle. Everybody knows, right, that Mila, when do you do it? As early as possible. The Gemara in Psachim, Dalad Amar Aleph says, the Gemara says, by Nivdaik Mitzafra, maybe Bedik in the morning, and you should learn it by Mila. Ubayayim Hashmini Yimol B'sar Lasivatanya, Kala Yayim Kashal Mila. You can do it the whole day, but what's the klal by Mila? There's reason, Makdimin Lemitzvahs. Right? Kala Yayim Kulay Kashal Mila. And the Shulchan Aruch in Hilchas Mila and Reish Samach Bey says, Ein Molen Asher Tanat Sachama B'yim Hashmini. And it says, Kala Yayim Kashal Mila. Alosha's reason, Makdimin Lemitzvahs. Umalin Miyad Babayker. Right? Where do we know, by the way, the din of Zrizin Magdimin Lemitzvahs, the Gemara says, in also Psachim Dav Dalet, because it says, Vayashkem Avrohom Babayker by Dakeda. So we learn from Avrohom the din of Zrizin Magdimin Lemitzvahs. It's a Pella. What does it say in this week's Parsha? Avrohom ben Tishim v'teisha shanim. Right? V'yimolei b'sar lasei. Be'etzem hayoyim hazeh nimel Avrohom Yishmael. Be'etzem hayoyim hazeh. Right? So, Tzarachiyin, it says, Be'etzem hayoyim hazeh. Right? What does it say in Perkid Rebbe Lazar and Perek Chavtes? It says, Karel l'shem ben Noach, umal es b'sar lasei, v'yishmol b'noi be'etzem hayoyim hazeh. Etzem hayoyim hazeh, the Medrash says, means, Gvuras hashemesh b'chatzi hayoyim. Be'etzem hayoyim means in the prime of the day. What is the prime of the day? When the sun is shining. Really, it's in the middle of the day. Be'etzem hayoyim hazeh. Right? B'chatzi hayoyim. So the first Mila was B'chatzi hayoyim. Be'etzem hayoyim hazeh. And yet we say, we learn from Avrohom Vayashki and Avrohom by that Keda, Zrizim Magdim Mitzvahs. If from Avrohom we learn Zrizim Magdim Mitzvahs, why Avrohom in his first Milah did he not do it at the beginning of the day? Why did he wait?
Hello. I just wanted to answer the riddle about why Avrohom Avinu waited till Chatzos, even though there's a Khal, Zrizim Magdim Mitzvahs, he's going to Avrohom Avinu. So the Medrash is also brought on Yalkut Shmoini and the Zeis Ranan, which is the Magen Avrohom, on the Haggah on the Yalkut Estes Kasha, and he says the Teretz Kedei Lefarsim Neged Bnei Dairei. So the question what exactly that means. So either you can learn that it means Reivam Adus Malach, that he waited because of the Indian was Reivam, the Chatzos Hayom is more Reivam. The question on this is that we know that the Khal, I guess according to most poskim, that the Zrizim Magdim is more chashuv than B'Reiv Manus Malach, and the Birkei Yosef and Erechaim and an Aleph brings the Gemara Mefereshes like this. The Gemara Shana Daf Lamed Beis, the Gemara over there speaks about whether you should do Tkiyas by Shachris and Musaf, and the Gemara says that really you should do Tkiyas by Shachris just like how, because of Zrizim Magdim, and even though B'Reiv Manus Malach is more by Musaf, you should still do it by Shachris because of Zrizim Magdim has Kedima over B'Reiv Manus Malach. The reason why we do Tkiyas by Musaf is because of Gzeres Malchus. And so it's clear, he learned klar that Zrizim Magdim is more chashuv than B'Reiv Manus Malach. So back to the kasha, what does it mean that Avrohom Avinu waited till Chatzos? So you could say another pshat in the Magen Avrohom that he means that Avrohom Avinu needs to go around from place to place, talking about Hashem, getting people to Naminim, like the Rambam and Avodah Zarah, Parak Aruch Gimel is Meir, how Avrohom needs to go from place to place and talk about Hashem and do mitzvahs for Herschel, and he made a Kiddush Hashem, so it could be the Indian of Kiddush Hashem, his tachlis, his Avodah, then he held that, even though it's not a Meir in the Milah itself, but that would push off the Indian of Zrizim Magdim. The Radal in the Pirkei D'Be'ezer just says that he also speaks about it. He says that the TV was created, was right before Chatzos, because Chatzos Hayom is better for the Makkah, as Hashem told the TV right before Chatzos Hayom. Okay, Kol Tov, and thank you very much for your show.
I hope you learned something from these big Talmud Chachamim and these discussions we had today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. In 2 weeks, there'll be a continuation of this. This is David Lichtenstein for the Yeshivah Shalmaila. Looking forward to speaking to you again next week.